The year is 1484. Tlacaelel is 86 years old. He's standing at the base of the Great Pyramid in Tenochtitlan, the seventh reconstruction of the Templo Mayor, the largest temple in Mesoamerica, taller than anything built before, more elaborate, more expensive, more ambitious. He ordered its construction, oversaw the design, secured the tribute that paid for it. And now, for the dedication ceremony, he's arranged something that will be remembered for centuries. 4 days of human sacrifice, thousands of captives, warriors from across the empire brought here specifically to die, lines of prisoners stretching across the plaza and into the streets beyond. Blood has been running down the pyramid steps for 3 days. The stone is permanently stained. The smell is overwhelming. Visiting rulers from allied and enemy cities watch from covered platforms. Some are impressed, some are horrified. All understand the message. This is what the Aztec Empire can do. This is the power Tlacaelel built. This is episode 5 of the Tlacaelel series, the final episode. Last episode, you saw how Tlacaelel rewrote Aztec history, restructured society, and created the ideological foundation of an empire. How he burned the old codices and commissioned new ones. How he elevated Cihuacoatl to supreme god status. How he invented the flower wars. Now you'll see the final decades, the empire at its peak, the massive ceremonies, the political brilliance that kept him in power for 60 years, and his death, and what came after. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the complete arc of the most powerful person in Mesoamerican history who never wore a crown. Itzcoatl dies. Tlacaelel's uncle, the emperor who took the throne during the crisis with Maxtla, who gave Tlacaelel his position, who trusted his nephew's radical plans, dies after 13 years of rule. The empire is vastly different from when Itzcoatl took power. The Tepanec territories are fully integrated. The Triple Alliance controls the Valley of Mexico. Tribute flows from dozens of cities. Tenochtitlan has tripled in size, and now someone needs to replace Itzcoatl. The succession isn't automatic. The Mexica don't have primogeniture. Oldest son inherits. They have an election system. The royal council chooses the next emperor from among eligible candidates, usually brothers or nephews of the previous emperor. Men of royal blood who've proven themselves as warriors and administrators. The council meets. Multiple candidates are considered. And the person with the most influence over the decision isn't a candidate at all. It's Tlacaelel, age 42, Supreme Military Commander, Chief Advisor for 13 years, the architect of the empire's expansion. Some council members suggest that Tlacaelel should become emperor. He has the bloodline. He's proven his ability. He's already running much of the government. Tlacaelel declines. This surprises everyone. Why would someone with his ambition, his ability, his track record refuse the highest position in the empire? His reasoning becomes clear later. Emperors are visible, accountable. When things go wrong, emperors get blamed. Emperors can be deposed, killed, replaced. Advisors are invisible, permanent. When things go well, the emperor gets credit. When things go wrong, the emperor takes blame. The advisor remains. And advisors don't change with each reign. Emperors die or are replaced. The position of Cihuacoatl, first advisor, continues. Tlacaelel understands something that most ambitious people don't. Real power doesn't require a crown. It requires being indispensable, and he's made himself indispensable. The council, with Tlacaelel's influence, chooses Moctezuma I, Tlacaelel's nephew, son of Tlacaelel's brother, Cihuacoatl. Moctezuma is a proven warrior. He's captured enemies in battle. He's respected by the military. He's competent but not threatening. And he's family. Which means Tlacaelel maintains influence through blood ties. Moctezuma I takes the throne and immediately confirms Tlacaelel as Cihuacoatl, Supreme Advisor, second in command in all but title. This will be the pattern for the rest of Tlacaelel's life. Emperors change. He remains. Under Moctezuma I, the empire expands aggressively, south into modern Oaxaca, east into Veracruz, west toward Guerrero. The conquests follow a pattern Tlacaelel designed. Military campaigns aren't just about territory. They're about tribute networks, strategic positioning, and capturing enemies for sacrifice. But the expansion hits a major challenge in the 1450s. A series of natural disasters, drought, locusts, crop failures, famine spreads across the Valley of Mexico. The Chinampas around Tenochtitlan produce less food. Stores diminish. People go hungry. In most civilizations, natural disasters cause political instability. Rulers get blamed. Revolutions happen. But Tlacaelel's ideological framework prevents this. The disasters aren't random bad luck. They're messages from the gods. Cihuacoatl is displeased. The sun is hungry. More sacrifices are needed. So the empire's response to famine is more warfare, more captives, more sacrifices. The religious ideology Tlacaelel built explains away the crisis and provides a solution that reinforces the system rather than challenging it. The disasters last 4 years, but the empire survives, and when the rains return and crops recover, it's seen as proof that the sacrifices worked, that Cihuacoatl was satisfied, that the system functions. This is the genius of Tlacaelel's design. The ideology is unfalsifiable. When things go well, it's because the gods are pleased. When things go badly, it's because the gods need more offerings. Either way, the solution is more warfare, more sacrifice, more imperial expansion. The system sustains itself. Moctezuma I dies after 29 years of rule. The empire is now massive, over 400 tributary cities, tribute flowing from the Gulf Coast, the Pacific Coast, and the Southern Highlands. Tenochtitlan has grown into a metropolis of over 200,000 people, one of the largest cities in the world. And Tlacaelel is 71 years old, still serving as Cihuacoatl. The succession process repeats. The council meets. Candidates are evaluated. And once again, Tlacaelel has decisive influence. The new emperor is Excavation, grandson of Tlacaelel's brother, another family connection, another competent warrior administrator who knows that real power sits beside the throne, not on it. Cihuacoatl rules for 13 years. The empire continues expanding. The tribute system is refined. The warrior culture flourishes. And Tlacaelel, now in his 70s and 80s, continues serving as supreme advisor. Think about what this means. Tlacaelel has now served 3 emperors, Itzcoatl, Moctezuma I, Cihuacoatl, 55 years as Cihuacoatl, 55 years of continuous influence over the empire's direction, military strategy, religious policy, and social structure. Most emperors don't rule that long. Most advisors get replaced when new emperors take power. But Tlacaelel has made himself permanent. The institutional memory, the continuity between reigns. Every emperor inherits him, and every emperor learns quickly that he's not just an advisor. He's the architect, the system designer, the person who understands how everything fits together because he built it. Cihuacoatl dies. The fourth emperor Tlacaelel will serve, takes power. Tzok. Tlacaelel is 84 years old, still sharp, still influential, still designing ceremonies, approving military campaigns, managing the tribute system, but he knows his time is limited, and he wants one final demonstration of what the empire has become. One ceremony that will define the Aztec achievement, that will be remembered for generations. The seventh reconstruction of the Great Pyramid is nearly complete. It's massive, the largest temple in Mesoamerican history, visible from everywhere in the city, a monument to Cihuacoatl and the empire's power. The dedication ceremony needs to match the scale of the building, needs to be unprecedented, memorable, definitive. Tlacaelel begins planning it in 1483. The 1484 dedication ceremony takes 18 months to prepare. Tlacaelel coordinates everything personally. The logistics alone are staggering. Thousands of captives need to be transported to Tenochtitlan, housed, fed, guarded. The sacrifices will take days. Multiple teams of priests working in shifts. Invitations go out to rulers across Mesoamerica, allied cities, tributary cities, even enemy cities. Everyone is invited. Everyone is expected to attend. Some are genuine allies who want to celebrate. Others are tributaries who have to attend. And some are enemies, like Tlaxcala, who are invited specifically so they can watch and be intimidated. The message is clear. Look what the Aztec Empire can do. Look at the wealth, the organization, the power, the commitment to the gods. The ceremony begins in late 1484. The date is chosen for astronomical and calendrical significance. The priests have calculated it precisely. Rulers from across Mesoamerica arrive. They're housed in special compounds, given elaborate hospitality, shown the city's wealth and infrastructure, the causeways, the aqueducts, the markets, the palaces, and then the sacrifices begin. The captives are warriors from recent campaigns. Hundreds from the Huastec region on the Gulf Coast. Hundreds from Oaxaca in the south. They're dressed in ceremonial regalia, given ritual preparations, told they're going to join Huitzilopochtli in the sky. Some believe it, some don't. It doesn't matter. The ceremony proceeds. 4 priests hold each captive on the stone at the pyramid's peak. A 5th priest, the one who performs the sacrifice, uses an obsidian knife. The technique is practiced, efficient, ritualized. The chest is opened, the heart removed, the body rolled down the steps. And it continues. For 4 days. Modern historians debate the numbers. Spanish sources, written decades later, claim 20,000 to 80,000 sacrifices. These numbers are probably exaggerated. The logistical impossibility of sacrificing tens of thousands of people in 4 days is significant. More realistic estimates suggest 4,000 to 8,000 sacrifices. Still massive, still unprecedented, still a demonstration of imperial power and organizational capacity. The visiting rulers watch. Some are impressed, some are horrified. The Tlaxcalans, sworn enemies of the Aztec Empire, watch their captured warriors die and understand the message. This could be you. This is what happens to enemies of the empire. At the base of the pyramid, Tlacaelel observes, he's 86 years old. This is his final masterpiece, the ceremony that demonstrates everything he built, the military power that captures thousands of warriors, the tribute system that feeds and houses them, the religious ideology that justifies their deaths, the political structure that organizes the event, the diplomatic network that brings rulers from across Mesoamerica to witness it. Every element of the ceremony reflects a system he designed. Every sacrifice validates an ideology he created. Every visiting ruler acknowledges an empire he built. He never wore the crown, but he architected everything the crown commanded. 3 years after the great ceremony, Tlacaelel is 89 years old. His health is failing. He served as Cihuacoatl for 59 years, 4 emperors, 60 years of continuous influence over the most powerful empire in Mesoamerican history. The details of his death aren't dramatic. No assassination, no deathbed speech recorded in the chronicles. He simply dies of old age, a rare achievement for someone in a position of power in the 15th century. His funeral is elaborate. He's given full honors, warriors, priests, nobility. The entire city mourns, because everyone understands what's being lost. He's replaced as Cihuacoatl by his son. The position continues, but it's not the same. The institutional knowledge, the personal authority, the direct connection to the empire's founding, that dies with him. Tizoc, the 4th emperor Tlacaelel served, dies the same year, possibly assassinated for military failures. He's replaced by Itzcoatl, a more aggressive and successful military leader. The empire continues expanding. The systems Tlacaelel built continue functioning. The warrior culture, the tribute networks, the flower wars, the religious ideology. All of it runs smoothly because the foundations are solid. By 1500, the Aztec Empire is at its peak. It controls territory from the Pacific to the Gulf of Mexico, from central Mexico to modern Guatemala. Over 400 tributary cities, 5 to 6 million subjects, the largest empire in Mesoamerican history. And then, in 1519, the Spanish arrive. What Tlacaelel built lasted 91 years after the victory over the Tepanecs. That's not a long time in historical terms. Rome lasted centuries. China's dynasties lasted hundreds of years. But 91 years is significant for Mesoamerica. Most Mesoamerican states rise and fall within a few generations. The Aztec Empire lasted as long as it did because Tlacaelel built sustainable systems. The Triple Alliance shared power among 3 cities rather than concentrating it in one. The tribute system extracted wealth without destroying local economies. The Flower Wars provided military glory without constant total warfare. But the same systems that enabled the empire's rise also contributed to its vulnerabilities. The tributary cities resented Aztec rule. They paid tribute. They provided sacrificial victims. They watched their warriors die on Tenochtitlan's pyramids. And when the Spanish offered an alternative alliance against the Aztecs, many accepted immediately. Tlaxcala, the Aztecs' perpetual enemy in the Flower Wars, became Cortez's most valuable ally. The Tlaxcalans provided thousands of warriors, local knowledge, legitimacy. Without Tlaxcalan support, the Spanish conquest probably fails. The Tepanec cities, conquered by Tlacaelel's Triple Alliance in 1428, also allied with the Spanish. Texcoco, one of the original Triple Alliance cities, fractured and partly joined Cortés. The coalition that Tlacaelel built fell apart when a more attractive alternative appeared. The ideological system Tlacaelel created also had weaknesses. The Aztecs believed they were chosen by Huitzilopochtli, that their empire was divinely ordained, that conquest was religious duty. But when the Spanish arrived with superior military technology, steel weapons, horses, guns, ships, and brought devastating diseases that killed millions, the ideological confidence cracked. If the Aztecs were chosen, why were they losing? If Huitzilopochtli required blood sacrifice, why wasn't he protecting his people? The Aztec Emperor Moctezuma II, great-nephew of the first Moctezuma, hesitated when Cortés arrived. Some sources suggest he wondered if Cortés was the returning god Quetzalcoatl. This hesitation, this moment of ideological uncertainty, gave the Spanish time to establish themselves. Tlacaelel's system was brilliant, but it was designed for a Mesoamerican context, for warfare with obsidian weapons, for conflicts that followed understood rules, for enemies who shared cultural assumptions about sacrifice and tribute. It wasn't designed for European invaders with radically different military technology, disease vectors that killed millions, and no respect for Mesoamerican conventions. The empire fell in 1521. Tenochtitlan was besieged, just as Tlacaelel had besieged Azcapotzalco 93 years earlier. But this time, the besieged city lost. The Spanish and their indigenous allies captured the city, destroyed it, built Mexico City on its ruins. The empire Tlacaelel built was gone. But that's not the end of the story, because while the political empire fell, the cultural impact of what Tlacaelel created lasted much longer. The Nahuatl language, the language of the Aztecs, survived. Millions of people still speak it. The Codex tradition continued, even under Spanish rule. Indigenous scribes created new codices, mixing traditional pictographic styles with Spanish alphabetic writing. The story of the Aztec Empire, the version Tlacaelel wrote, survived in those codices. The histories he commissioned became the histories that later scholars read. The narrative he created became the accepted past. Even today, when you hear about the Aztecs as a chosen people, about Huitzilopochtli as the sun god who required blood sacrifice, about the Mexica as destined rulers, you're hearing Tlacaelel's version, the propaganda he created nearly 600 years ago. The old histories, the ones he burned, are lost. We don't know what they said, how they portrayed the Mexica migration, what they said about the Tepanec subjugation, what earlier versions of Huitzilopochtli existed before Tlacaelel elevated him. All we have is what Tlacaelel wanted us to have, the history he wrote, the ideology he built, the narrative he imposed. In that sense, he achieved something remarkable, not just political power during his lifetime, but historical power after his death. He controlled how future generations understood the past, how we understand the past. That's a level of influence that few people in history achieve. Kings are remembered, conquerors are remembered, but how many people successfully rewrite history itself? How many people create an ideology so powerful that it survives the civilization it was designed for? Tlacaelel did that. So who was Tlacaelel? He was born in 1398 into a city that paid tribute to foreign overlords. He died in 1487 as the architect of the most powerful empire in Mesoamerican history. He never wore a crown, but he served 4 emperors, advised them, guided them, outlasted them. He wasn't a brilliant general who won decisive battles. He was a strategist who understood that alliances, timing, and internal divisions could defeat superior armies. He wasn't a religious fanatic who believed the propaganda he created. He was an ideologist who understood that belief is a tool, that if you control the stories people tell about themselves, you control their actions. He wasn't a tyrant who ruled through fear. He was a system designer who built institutions, military orders, tribute networks, sumptuary laws, warrior culture that sustained themselves without requiring his constant intervention. He was patient. He spent years observing, learning, waiting for his opportunity. When it came, when Itzcoatl took the throne and made him supreme military commander, he was ready. He was ruthless when necessary. He threatened the Mexica Council with dispossession if they voted for surrender. He burned centuries of historical records to replace them with propaganda. He designed a system that required thousands of human sacrifices. But he was also brilliant. The Triple Alliance was a genuinely innovative political structure. The Flower Wars were a clever solution to the problem of maintaining military culture without constant total warfare. The tribute system was sophisticated and sustainable. He understood power in a way that few people do. He understood that being emperor makes you a target, that real power is invisible, that the person who designs the system controls everything that happens within it. He lived for 89 years, in an era where life expectancy was 40, where violence was common, where political rivals were routinely killed. He survived for nearly 9 decades in the highest levels of power. That's not luck, that's skill, intelligence, strategic thinking, an understanding of how to be indispensable without being threatening. The Aztec Empire lasted 91 years after the victory over the Tepanecs. Tlacaelel lived and wielded power for 59 of those years. He was the architect, the foundation, the system designer. And when the Spanish chronicles were written, describing the empire they conquered, they couldn't ignore him. Diego Duran, a Spanish friar who compiled Aztec histories, called him the most powerful man the world had seen. That's not Aztec propaganda. That's a Spanish observer, decades after the conquest, acknowledging what Tlacaelel had been. The most powerful person you've never heard of. Until now. The Great Pyramid in Tenochtitlan, the one Tlacaelel commissioned, the one dedicated with thousands of sacrifices in 1484, stood for 37 more years. In 1521, when the Spanish and their allies conquered the city, they destroyed it. They tore down the temple. They built a Catholic cathedral on the same site. They tried to erase the Aztec past. But in 1978, workers digging in Mexico City's historic center uncovered something. Foundation stones, carved serpent heads, the remains of the Great Pyramid. Archaeologists excavated. They found the temple's base, the skull racks where sacrificial victims' heads were displayed, the offerings, jade, obsidian, sacrificed animals, human remains, evidence of the ceremonies Tlacaelel designed. Today, you can visit the Templo Mayor Museum in Mexico City. You can see the ruins of the pyramid, the artifacts, the evidence of what Tlacaelel built. The empire is gone. The political power is gone. The tribute system is gone. The warrior orders are gone. But the stones remain. The history remains. The one Tlacaelel wrote. The memory remains. And now you know the story, the complete story. From the boy born on an island paying tribute to foreign overlords, to the advisor who rewrote history and built an empire, to the old man watching thousands die in his final ceremony, to the death of the architect and the system that survived him, and the eventual fall of everything he built. Tlacaelel, the advisor, the architect, the most powerful person you've never heard of. Until now.